My legitimate sister and I were married on the same day. She married into the household of the Marquis of Yongan, while I was wed to a lowly city guard. Unexpectedly, the young Marquis was later diagnosed with oligospermia, and my sister, unable to conceive for years, became the laughingstock of the capital. Meanwhile, the city guard repeatedly distinguished himself in battle, was promoted to the rank of general, and together we had 5 sons and 2 daughters. Earning an imperial plaque inscribed with the words "May your descendants flourish," my legitimate elder sister, consumed by jealousy, poisoned me on the day I was granted the title of a noble lady. When I opened my eyes again, we had both returned to the day of our betrothal. This time, my elder sister was the first to choose the city guard soldier. That very night, the young Marquis also rushed to break off our engagement, saying, "I don't want to ruin your life for no reason. The truth is, I cannot, you can't have children, is that it?" I grabbed his arm tightly. "I'll marry you. I'll marry no one but you. My mother-in-law is wealthy and generous, my father-in-law is influential and open-minded, and my husband is charming, handsome, in the prime of his life, and he can't have children. LMAO, how could my noble-born sister not covet such overwhelming fortune?" When my elder sister chose the city guard first, I knew she had also been reborn, she said arrogantly. This time, the blessings of 5 sons and 2 daughters and the imperial plaque of abundant offspring will all be mine. I couldn't suppress the smile at the corners of my mouth. "They're all yours, they're all yours," she sneered. "You and your handsome but useless young Marquis can become the laughingstock of the entire capital together." I lowered my head and said meekly, "How could I have the good fortune of my elder sister? It's only right that I'm mocked for not being able to bear a son." After saying that, I covered my face and pretended to sob as I ran out of the room. If I didn't run, my bell-like laughter would have been impossible to hold back. "Oh, my foolish elder sister, you don't want this leisurely and prosperous life, yet you insist on having those troublesome 5 sons and 2 daughters. You seek that so-called blessing of abundant offspring. Then you can go through 10 pregnancies in 10 years for me, miscarriages, premature births, stillbirths, difficult labor. And the aftermath, age spots, stretch marks, hair loss, hemorrhoids, epilepsy, convulsions, mastitis, incontinence, dizziness, bone pain, bleeding, and tearing of the lower body." I leisurely returned to the side courtyard. Too overjoyed to sit still, I paced around the courtyard, making plans for this carefree life ahead. Where to go in the future? In spring, we must go for an outing to the West Embankment and invite Sister Liu. In summer, we must go boating to admire the lotus flowers and bring along Sister Yang. In autumn, we must drink wine and appreciate the chrysanthemums. All my girlfriends are wine enthusiasts, so we should start brewing some chrysanthemum wine now to have it ready. In winter, I heard that the South is like spring all year round, and I've long wanted to go south to see it. By the way, in my free time, I also want to learn how to play polo. I haven't tried Chuiwan or Tuhu either. No morning sickness, no incontinence, no excruciating tearing pain. Thinking about it, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself in a daze. Miss, the maid Xiao Ju hurriedly ran in from outside the courtyard. I was still immersed in a sweet dream, still smiling, when I realized that the sky had already darkened. Xiao Ju gasped for breath. The young Marquis has come to break off the engagement." I was startled. What? By the time the Marquis's residence must have just received the news of the engagement with the young lady, and the young Marquis rushed over without a moment's delay to break it off. "What's wrong?" Xiao Ju wiped her tears, stomping her feet in anger. That cursed Marquis's residence. Could it be that they look down on the young lady for being a concubine's daughter? I had no time to comfort Xiao Ju. Lifting my skirt and hurriedly walking toward the courtyard gate, young Marquis Lu Chengyuan came alone. He stood outside the small, rarely used side door of the Shen residence. A jade-colored robe accentuated his tall, upright figure, making him look dashing and handsome. However, his face seemed slightly flushed. "Shen Mingyu." He blushed and stepped forward, his expression somewhat unnatural. "Go and tell your father and mother to call off the engagement with me. Just say you look down on me, so that you and the Shen family can save face." Why? I grew anxious. The good days haven't even started yet. How can they suddenly come to an end? Do you look down on me because I'm a child of a concubine? Of course not. He shook his head. What does it matter whether one is legitimate or not? It's just, his face flushed red, and he gritted his teeth. I don't want to hide it from you. I can't just waste your entire life for no reason. The truth is, I can't, looking at his expression, as if he were ready to face death. A sudden realization dawned on me. You can't have children. Is that it? He looked up in a daze. How did you know? And I had already excitedly grabbed his sleeve. I'll marry you. I'll marry you. I'll marry you. I, Shen Mingyu, will marry no one but you. Hilarious. Looks like another reincarnated soul. In my previous life, my legitimate sister and father cried and made a scene until she got her wish to marry Lu Chengyuan, together with my stepmother. They betrothed me to a lowly city gate guard, unexpectedly. After 10 years of marriage, my legitimate sister still couldn't conceive. She sought medical help everywhere and tried all sorts of folk remedies. In the end, it turned out that the one who couldn't have children wasn't herself, but Lu Chengyuan. She also discovered that the son born to the concubine she had forced upon Lu Chengyuan was not his biological child. Her legitimate sister, desperate for a son, would point at Lu Chengyuan every day, calling him useless, and even threatened to take her own life in the chambers of the Marquis of Yong'an and his wife, causing chaos throughout the entire Marquis residence. Everyone in the Marquis household felt indebted to her, serving her with delicacies and showering her with gold and jewels. With just a word from the eldest sister, the young Marquis bought her a mansion in the capital and fertile fields in the suburbs without even blinking. Yet, the eldest sister remained unsatisfied, clamoring day after day for a divorce. The Marquis's family had no choice but to agree to let her go. They allowed her to write the letter of divorce herself, promised to find her a good match in the future, and even offered her a substantial sum of money as compensation. However, the eldest sister could not bear to part with the Marquis's wealth and status. She went around the capital, spreading rumors that the Yong'an Marquis's family was unjust and intended to divorce her, turning the Marquis's household into the laughingstock of the entire city. The city guard I married, however, accidentally saved the life of the emperor, who was traveling incognito, and rose through the ranks, eventually being appointed as the great general of northern pacification. Not only that, but we also lived in perfect harmony, treating each other with the utmost respect, and were blessed with the most auspicious 5 sons and 2 daughters. Everyone in the capital said I was truly fortunate. Even the emperor wanted to share in the joy of the prosperous household of the general's residence, and specially bestowed the imperial plaque "May your descendants flourish" and granted me the title of second-rank Lady of Honor. My legitimate sister was both jealous and resentful, secretly putting red crown poison in my bowl on the day I was granted the title of a noble lady. When I opened my eyes again, we had both been reborn together. This time, she was going to marry the city guard and bear him 5 sons and 2 daughters. My legitimate sister laughed triumphantly. Dear sister, in the future, I will be granted the title of a noble lady, while you won't even be able to lay an egg and will be mocked by the entire capital. I have no children to raise. My body is strong and healthy, I am wealthy and carefree, with immense power, my in-laws are open-minded, my husband is handsome. What does it matter if I'm mocked by the entire capital? That is what I deserve. As for that broken plaque of prosperity and descendants and the title of second-rank lady, if she wants it, then give it to her, but I wonder if she can bear the price behind it. I smiled. A month later, my legitimate elder sister and I got married on the same day. The procession from the Marquis mansion, with its red bridal sedan and carriages, blocked several streets. They beat gongs and drums all the way, scattering silver notes, drawing the entire capital to watch the ceremony. My legitimate sister was quietly married off to Qinyi, a low-ranking city guard, in a small 4-person sedan chair. Even though my stepmother had prepared a generous dowry for my legitimate sister, it couldn't even compare to the pocket money the Marquis's family gave me. Just before we parted, I heard my legitimate sister mutter resentfully under her breath, "When he married me back then, the Marquis's family didn't make such a grand spectacle. So what if the fanfare is grand? In the end, she's still a hen that can't lay eggs, under the red bridal veil. The corners of my lips curled high. The wedding banquet at the Marquis estate was grandly arranged, with nobles and dignitaries, music and dance, lasting until late into the night. A fair, slender hand with distinct knuckles gently lifted my veil. In the gentle glow of the red candles filling the room, I saw Lu Chengyuan's face, clear-spirited and elegantly boned, with sharp brows and bright eyes. He was drunk, his dark, moist eyes looking at me before lowering again. Do you truly not despise me? I stared blankly at the young Marquis before me, dressed in a bright red wedding robe, his face slightly flushed and the corners of his eyes tinged with red. I thought to myself, isn't it? Dear sister, you're having it this good. Lu Chengyuan is not only incredibly handsome, but he also clearly has a great figure. My gaze drifted downward. The wedding robe was loose, but a thin belt at the waist was enough to outline his strong, narrow waist, and this collarbone, these broad shoulders, these long, slender legs, and, most importantly, the young Marquis. He can't have children. This means I no longer have to fear marital duties or find ways to avoid my husband, who is as fierce and sweaty as a wolf. No longer do I have to secretly consume ineffective folk remedies like musk and mercury to harm my body, nor do I have to endure 10 pregnancies in 10 years, either being pregnant or constantly on the path to pregnancy. Perhaps noticing my silence, Lu Chengyuan said dejectedly, if you regret it, we can postpone tonight. I wrapped my arms around his neck and said, stop the nonsense, give it to me now. 3 months later, I returned to my parents' home at the same time as my legitimate elder sister, OF. Lu Chengyuan bought me a small horse from the western regions, and I happily rode it all the way back to my parents' home. He rode a tall horse, staying close by my side to protect me, and watched me with a smile. Once you get used to riding, I'll buy you a Fergana horse. I've just bought a new horse farm in the outskirts of the capital. Once spring arrives, I'll organize a gathering. And you can invite your girlfriends to play polo. I turned my head and smiled at him. Thank you, my dear husband. My elder sister, however, was carried into the Shun residence in a small sedan chair, steadily supported by 2 elderly women. She sat in the master's chair, gently stroking her belly with a smile. The doctor said it's been over 2 months already. As I ate the roasted lamb, I couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, truly worthy of Qinyi, married for only 3 months. And the child is already over 2 months along. Such efficiency. My elder sister sighed softly. It's just that we can't tell the gender yet. She looked at me with a smile. I wonder, after being married for so long, if there's any movement in your belly, sister. I wiped the oil from the corner of my mouth and quickly waved my hand. Oh, I don't have such luck. My elder sister smiled triumphantly. My stepmother also couldn't contain her joy. Our Mingzhu is truly blessed. She urged her elder sister, quick, have some grilled lamb to nourish yourself, and this plum blossom cake, you've loved it since you were little. The elder sister shook her head. Grilled lamb is too greasy. The sight of it makes me nauseous. I can't eat the plum blossom cake either. The doctor said sweets can harm the fetus. TSK. In the end, the elder sister only ate some plain boiled chicken and simple side dishes. After the meal, she vomited everything out. As I passed by my pale-faced, bruised-eyed elder sister, I saw my good brother-in-law Qinyi looking at her with disdain. Other women can still wash clothes and cook when they're pregnant with big bellies, but you're just too delicate. My elder sister's eyes reddened. I'm vomiting so much that even stomach acid is coming up, and you don't even feel sorry for me. Qinyi sneered. What's there to feel sorry about? You keep asking for this and that. All the family's savings have been spent on your pregnancy. Why don't you ever think about how hard it is for me to earn my pay in the military camp? My elder sister's eyes grew even redder. I drifted by and sighed. Oh, come on, you two, stop fighting already. Off to ride the little horse. In April, the horse ranch is lush with green grass. Lu Chengyuan indeed bought me a red Akeltique horse and had the ranch completely refurbished. I invited a few close friends from the capital and noble ladies with close ties to the Marquis's household for a spring outing and a game of polo. Drums beat rhythmically, and skirts flutter in the wind. The match ended, and Sister Liu and I narrowly won by 1 point, taking the top spot. Sister Liu rested the mallet on her shoulder and laughed triumphantly. Yong Qingtang, you should practice more before challenging us again. Qingtang pouted angrily. Sister Liu, don't get too proud. I'll surpass you and Sister Shen sooner or later. This made all the sisters burst into laughter. Sister Chen smiled as she handed over a handkerchief. You mischievous ones, quickly wipe your sweat. Be careful not to catch a cold. Someone else laughed and said, Sister Mingyu, why didn't your elder sister come? You've invited so many distinguished ladies, and isn't she always the one who loves to join in such lively gatherings the most? Sister Qingtang was tying up her hair bun. Why invite her? I dislike her the most. Sister Liu shook her head with a smile. I'm afraid even if you call her this time, she won't come. I heard she's at home protecting her pregnancy, taking it extremely seriously, afraid of the slightest bump or injury. Qingtang widened her eyes. Then why did I hear that she went to the archery range to shoot arrows the other day, and even went hunting in the wild forest? Everyone shook their heads, not knowing why, but I knew. She had been diagnosed with a female fetus and was hastily practicing archery, hunting pheasants, riding stallions, and watching tigers and leopards. If you want to give birth to a boy, you can change the fetus from female to male before birth. There have always been such rumors circulating. In the first few months of pregnancy, when the embryo is not fully developed, it is possible to change the gender of the fetus through certain methods. In my previous life, I was forced to ride a stallion, shoot a male deer, and drink water infused with burnt bowstrings while suffering from morning sickness. As a result, naturally, it was impossible to turn a girl into a boy. Qin Yi and his mother, Lady Wang, were displeased, saying it was because I lacked the fortune. So even with such a remarkable secret technique, I still couldn't produce a son. I never expected that before Qin Yi even had to pressure her, my elder sister would willingly take the bitter medicine to change the fetus's gender. Well then, let's see if she has the fortune to successfully change the gender. 5 months later, the legitimate elder sister gave birth. As expected, it was a daughter. Just after finishing her postpartum confinement, she returned to her maternal home. She threw the table full of dishes prepared by her legitimate mother all over the floor. What, turning a girl into a boy? It's all a lie. My poor mother-in-law dares to give me a dirty look. Turning her head and seeing me just entering with chrysanthemum wine, she composed her expression. She smiled politely and said, but then again, girls have their own advantages. Although not as good as boys, they're still better than not being able to have any at all. You agree, don't you, Sister Mingyu? I nodded hurriedly. Sister is right. Sister has just finished her postpartum confinement, so I'm afraid you can't drink Rongji's chrysanthemum wine. I'll just have to drink it by myself then. Everyone in the capital knows about Rongji's chrysanthemum wine, rich and sweet. Its aroma is intoxicating. Unfortunately, only a dozen or so jars are produced each year, which in the past were exclusively supplied to the imperial palace. This year, I mentioned my craving, and Lu Chengyuan specially went to ask the emperor for a jar. I took a small sip and couldn't help but exclaim, how fragrant. My elder sister looked at the chrysanthemum wine, her expression changing slightly, but after a moment, she calmly smoothed her hair as if nothing had happened. She said to the matriarch with a loud laugh, everyone says that giving birth is like passing through the gates of hell, but I had a very easy time with this pregnancy. I only vomited a few times. It just goes to show that it's all exaggerated. So what if this child isn't a boy? If I just have a few more, won't I get one eventually? She glanced at me. As long as you can bear children. Why worry about not having a future full of sons and daughters? I nodded heavily. Yes, you're absolutely right, sister. But I laughed inside. She is still young, having just given birth to one. So naturally she doesn't feel the hardship of pregnancy and recovers quickly. What about after that? I smiled and took a sip of wine. I was even more curious than my elder sister about how she would live that good life with children running around. Half a month later, my elder sister was pregnant again. Another month passed, and she deliberately sent someone to summon me. This time, she was carrying a male child. The Qin family was naturally overjoyed, treating the legitimate sister's pregnancy as a precious treasure to protect. Every half month, The legitimate sister would insist on returning to her maiden home with me, proudly flaunting her belly in front of me. With nothing to do in winter, the changes in her were more entertaining than storybooks, and I gladly accepted the invitations. At 2 months pregnant, my elder sister began experiencing morning sickness and developed heavy dark circles under her eyes. At 3 months pregnant, some spots appeared on my elder sister's fair face. At 5 months pregnant, my elder sister's nose grew a size larger, and her skin gradually became rough. At 8 months pregnant, my elder sister started experiencing swelling and back pain. She secretly asked our mother to hire a female physician to help her with constipation issues. Later on, the legitimate elder sister, finding it difficult to move around, quietly stayed at the She family to rest during her pregnancy. This time, the various symptoms of her pregnancy were much more pronounced compared to her first one. Before giving birth, she returned to her parents' home with her large belly, intending to deliver the baby there. "Mother, this time I don't want to give birth in that dirty shed again." The saying "women are unclean" reflects a belief held by both commoners and nobility that childbirth was considered impure, and therefore women were not allowed to give birth inside their living quarters. Wealthy families were willing to build better-equipped birthing rooms. Ordinary people, however, would simply set up a makeshift thatched shed outside the courtyard as a temporary space for childbirth and postpartum recovery. Given Chinyi's current family circumstances, he could only afford to build such a crude thatched shed. My elder sister was crying with genuine emotion, but our mother frowned. "Mingzhu, if a woman gives birth in her parents' home, it will bring bloodshed and misfortune to her family. Your younger brother is still young." My elder sister was stunned. She hadn't expected her usually doting mother to refuse her this time. But before she could react, her mother-in-law, Madame Wang, had already arrived to take her home. "Our Qin family's grandson. How can he be born in someone else's house? If you give birth to a daughter and secretly swap her for a boy, wouldn't we be raising someone else's son? Hurry up and come home with me." My elder sister gritted her teeth as she was dragged back home by Madame Wang. While my stepmother wiped away tears but did not stop them, I heard she went into labor as soon as she got home, and sure enough, it was a son. Still holding on to her anger, she had a difficult labor, lasting a full 5 or 6 hours. It still took place in the simple, makeshift thatched shed behind the house. Exhausted and drained, she opened her eyes intending to vent her anger at her mother-in-law. But suddenly, a piece of great news arrived. Her husband Qin Yi, who hadn't shown his face at home for 2 months, had actually been promoted, and he was promoted several levels at once. It was around this time in her previous life as well. Qin Yi had sneaked out of the city in the middle of the night and happened to save the emperor, who was traveling incognito and had fallen into the water. As a result, he was promoted several levels at once, going directly from an unknown city gate guard to a rank 8 deputy military officer. The Qin family is blessed with double happiness: a newborn son and Qin Yi's promotion. Mrs. Wang held her grandson, beaming with joy. "My son is truly capable, both in fathering a son and in advancing his career. Daughter-in-law, you marrying into our Qin family is truly a blessing from our ancestors." My elder sister argued a few times but was scolded by Qin Yi for being unfilial to her mother-in-law. She had no choice but to swallow her grievances and discontent. Focusing all her efforts on organizing the Qin family's celebration banquet, the Qin family had no savings, and the eldest sister wanted a grand celebration, so she had no choice but to grit her teeth and use her own dowry. Qin Yi initially criticized her for being wasteful, but when he realized she was using her dowry, he happily embraced her, calling her a virtuous wife, and coaxed the eldest sister into spending even more of her dowry to help him navigate the official circles. On the day of the wedding feast, the Qin family's narrow courtyard was filled with several tables of relatives and friends, yet the eldest sister, who had funded and organized everything, had to stay in a makeshift shed, recovering from childbirth and nursing her baby. It's hard to say for whom this double celebration truly brought joy. She deliberately called me into the thatched shed where she was in confinement. As soon as I entered the stuffy shed, I was hit by a strong smell, a mix of vinegar, the scent of blood, and the stench of sweat, but my elder sister seemed oblivious. beaming with pride like a victorious rooster. Sister, you may be smiling, but you must be seething with envy inside, aren't you? I laugh because I'm jealous. Jealous that you emptied your dowry to pave the way for a man's future. Jealous that you gave birth to a second child before even recovering from your first postpartum confinement. Jealous that at just 17, you already have sagging breasts, a widened pelvis, and a belly full of stretch marks. I held my breath, covered my nose, and crawled out of the thatched shed. This smell is far worse than my family's daily cleaned and scented outhouse. If I stayed any longer, I would have thrown up. Before leaving, I overheard my legitimate sister arguing with our legitimate mother. The last batch of scented ointment didn't work at all. The spots haven't faded one bit, and the stretch marks on my belly have become even more unsightly. Mother, you must go find me some good medicine again. I can't stand being this ugly. But, my dear legitimate sister, it seems you still don't know. The changes in appearance are the least of all the pains of pregnancy. Returning to the Marquis manor, I first called for a bucket of hot water to bathe. In the sweltering heat of summer, just sitting in the thatched shed for a little while made me feel quite smelly. When I called for the maid to bring a towel with my hair still wet, instead of the maid, Lu Chengyuan came in, my old face flushed red, and I ducked back into the bathtub. Husband, don't tease me. He smiled and stepped forward, gently drying my long hair with a cloth towel. We've been sleeping under the same blanket for 2 years now. Why are you still shy? I angrily splashed water at him. But he caught my wrist. Only then did I notice a faint trace of sadness in his eyes. Husband, what's wrong? He lowered his gaze. I heard you went to the Qin family's wedding banquet today. Do you regret marrying a sterile man like me? Oh, so that's what this is about. I smiled and lifted his chin. Chengyuan, would you like to see how I look right now? After 2 years of marriage, my hair has grown longer, my body has become stronger, and I've become much more lively and cheerful. Whenever I meet my girlfriends, they all say my skin is fair with a rosy glow, and my complexion is countless times better than before. They even ask me for the recipe of the Marquis's fragrant cream. But it's not because of any fancy fragrant cream, it's because my life now, without pregnancy or childbirth, is truly extremely comfortable. People always deceive us women, saying that carrying on the family line and having many children brings blessings. They also threaten us with sticks, claiming that pregnancy and childbirth are women's natural duties, and that women who do not bear children are incomplete and sinful. But no one ever tells women how difficult pregnancy is, how dangerous childbirth can be, and how painful and terrifying the after effects are. It seems to me that this is nothing but a scam, luring us women in, only to destroy us. By the time the woman realized it, it was already too late. There was no pill of regret to take. Chengyuan, as a man, you will never understand a woman's suffering, but I understand it, and in this lifetime, I have made up my mind to escape this cage. Chengyuan, it wasn't you who made me unable to bear children, it was my own choice to walk this path. You don't have to blame yourself, and you shouldn't call yourself useless. Chengyuan, if I had to choose again, I would still choose to marry you. Before, it was because I knew you couldn't have children, but now, it's not just because of that anymore. In the hazy mist, a glimmer of light gradually appeared in his eyes. Then, what else is it because of? Naturally, it's because now I have also come to love you. Without you, my current happiness would be diminished by a few degrees. His eyes reddened as he buried his head in the crook of my neck. Since I married you, it's only natural that I should give you the most comfortable and happiest life. It's just that there are many idle rumors in the capital, and I'm afraid they might hurt you. I have been married for 2 years and still haven't conceived, and there are indeed some rumors circulating in the capital, especially at this recent wedding banquet. Some women secretly compared me to my elder sister, mocking me for being unable to bear children. But what does it matter if people gossip a little? Everyone in the capital, men and women alike, even the exalted emperor, is subject to a bit of gossip now and then, so I didn't take it to heart at all. I comforted softly. I don't care. A muffled voice came from beside my ear. I care. A few days later, I took Little Orange and traveled north by carriage. The capital is scorching hot, and I've heard that the north is quite cool. I can't resist the urge to go and see for myself. Lu Chengyuan initially had some reservations, after all. The Northerners are known for their fierce and unyielding nature, and he couldn't accompany me due to his official duties, but he couldn't stop me from insisting on going, so he had no choice but to send his most capable guards to protect me along the way. He also arranged a carriage and packed many of my daily necessities and travel funds. Before I left, some rumors began to circulate in the capital. They say the reason the new bride of Yong'an Marquis Manor hasn't conceived is not because she is infertile, but because the young Marquis has a hidden ailment. In this world, a man's infertility is even more embarrassing and humiliating, as few men are willing to admit such issues. Usually, the blame is unjustly placed on the woman. Now, everyone has started quietly mocking Lu Chengyuan again, and no one pays attention to me anymore. I sighed. Knowing full well that Lu Chengyuan himself had leaked this information, he feared that I would be ridiculed and blamed by the world for this, so he did not hesitate to expose his own scars. In my heart, there was a faint, bittersweet sweetness. He didn't have to do this, yet he still did. When I arrived in Lianqing, I realized he had even arranged and prepared the mansion and servants, waiting only for me to move in. On the desk lay a letter he had sent by carrier pigeon. Your joy is my blessing. Enjoy yourself to the fullest and return home soon. I carefully and tenderly tucked this letter into my pouch. I spent the entire summer and autumn in the cool city of Lianqing, reluctant to return home. Every day, Xiaoju and I roamed around having fun, made some friends, and sampled all the local snacks. Qing Tang sent a letter every 3 days. I rubbed my forehead, thinking this would surely exhaust the Yang family's carrier pigeons. In her letter, she vividly described all sorts of fresh gossip from the capital to me. My elder sister became pregnant again right after finishing her postpartum confinement, but she didn't manage to keep it, miscarrying when it was 2 months old, and then she got pregnant again soon after, only to lose that one as well. Qin Yi handled several important tasks for the emperor and earned his favor, getting promoted once again. The legitimate elder sister grew anxious and summoned both imperial physicians and sorcerers to induce pregnancy, finally conceiving once more. It was said that this time it was another male child, and the Qin family was overjoyed, guarding her as if she were the apple of their eye. Moreover, the Qin family had now become a prominent and respectable household, and they began to emphasize prenatal education. I couldn't help but click my tongue in disapproval. 2 miscarriages in a row. Another pregnancy, and even more terrifying, prenatal education. Someone even more exhausted than the Yang family's carrier pigeons has appeared. Before the arrival of winter in Lianqing, Xiaoju and I set off back to the capital. We traveled while playing, stopping at interesting places for 10 days or half a month before moving on. It took nearly half a year before we finally returned to the capital. Interesting trinkets from Lianqing, local snacks, and gifts from the girls before we parted filled half a carriage. Lu Chengyuan, who had taken half a day off to welcome me outside the city gate, pursed his lips and said, "I thought you were never coming back." I grinned and tugged at his sleeve. "Don't be angry, haven't I been writing to you all along?" His expression softened as he pulled me into his arms. "Next time, I will definitely go with you." Just half a day after returning to the capital, I heard that my elder sister was already 6 months pregnant. Her mother-in-law, Lady Wang, was boasting all over the capital, saying she had set the strictest prenatal education rules for my sister, ensuring she would give birth to the smartest and most capable grandson. Wealthy families, in order to have a good son, would practice strict prenatal education. Pregnant women were required not to sleep on their sides, not to sit on the edge, not to stand on one foot, and not to eat improper foods. They were not to eat improperly cut food, not to sit on improperly arranged mats, not to look at improper sights, and not to listen to lewd sounds. They also had to regulate their minds, harmonize their emotions, restrain their desires, refrain from scolding even when angry, maintain a focused mind and righteous thoughts, and often listen to scriptures. Only in this way can a boy with upright character and exceptional talent be born. That is to say, the eldest sister must not sleep on her side, must not sit in a slanted posture, must not stand without being upright, must not eat food that is not cut squarely, must not sit on a mat that does not conform to etiquette, must not look at lewd scenes, must not listen to music that violates propriety. She must also regulate her temperament, strictly control all desires, and even when angry, must not curse others, while maintaining a pure and upright mind. Among these, the most terrifying aspect is not the restrictions on words and actions, but the principle of though angry, do not curse, and maintain a proper state of mind. This means that no matter what grievances the legitimate sister suffers, she can only swallow them, and she must not harbor resentment in her heart. Failing to adhere to any of the above points will affect the development of the fetus. Therefore, if any problems arise during childbirth or in the future growth of the fetus, it will all be the mother's fault. After returning from Liancheng, Qingtang and I went to visit Sister Liu, who had been bedridden with illness for many days. She had married into a respectable family, and her husband had just achieved the third highest rank in the imperial examinations. When we arrived, Sister Liu was half lying on the bed, emaciated and looking utterly haggard. After stepping inside, Sister Qingtang stood frozen for a long moment before she began to cry. "Sister Liu, it's only been a little over a month since we last met. How did you fall so gravely ill?" Sister Liu struggled to lift her hand, smiling as she wiped away her tears. "Dear sister, don't cry, let me rest for a few days, and then I'll play a game of polo with you." A maid nearby, wiping her own tears, whispered to us that after Sister Liu gave birth to a pair of twins, she had to both care for the children and manage the household chores. Her body was completely drained, and it was no longer suitable for her to bear more children. She sought a contraceptive prescription and took some mercury as directed by the formula. Little did she expect her health to deteriorate further, and now she has developed a condition of continuous bleeding, which has persisted for several months. Holding Sister Liu's emaciated hand, I was so heartbroken that I couldn't utter a single word. I only regret not having advised her more back then, and now I hate my own helplessness. What's the use of persuading her again? In this world, which woman can decide her own marriage and childbirth, she forced herself to comfort me, saying, "Sister Mingyu, don't cry either. I've taken all the medicine and supplements you sent, and I'll get better soon." I nodded, tears falling with a plop. Not long after, Sister Liu was gone. She never recovered and could no longer play polo with us. Qingtang and I went to pay our respects, placing a colorful polo ball in front of her grave and sprinkling some chrysanthemum wine she loved to drink. After returning home, I began making arrangements to open a medicine shop in the capital, specializing in the development and sale of contraceptive drugs for women. Currently, there are no reliable contraceptive methods available for women. Women seeking contraception either consume musk and mercury, soak in ice water, or use a rolling pin to press on their abdomen to force an abortion. These methods have been widely circulated for a long time, but they are largely ineffective and can cause significant harm to women's health. Often, women become deaf, paralyzed, or even lose their lives as a result. People would rather spend exorbitant amounts on developing elusive elixirs of immortality than open their eyes to the suffering of women who, unable to prevent pregnancy, are forced to endure the pains of frequent childbirth and the dangers of abortion. I've come to realize that if women still cannot make decisions about their own marriages, then shouldn't they at least be able to decide whether to have children or how many to have? Contraceptive pills in the pharmacy will be sold at the lowest price and regularly given to impoverished women. I want all women in this world to have the right to choose whether or not to bear children. But my dear Sister Liu, she will never return. On the day the pharmacy opened, my legitimate sister's child happened to be 1 month old. They did not hold a full month celebration, because the legitimate eldest sister gave birth to a child with a bluish-black complexion. Lady Wang was furious and pointed at the weak, exhausted legitimate eldest sister, who had just given birth, and scolded her directly. "I told you not to be greedy. What filthy things have you been sneaking behind our backs to eat? Was it because you saw something filthy when you went back to your parents' home a few days ago?" She then hugged Qin Yi and cried, "The good wife you married must have resented me during her pregnancy. Her heart is so malicious that she gave birth to such a monster. Neither human nor ghost, such a vicious woman, sooner or later, she will poison your mother." Qin immediately flew into a rage, pointing at his son and cursing his legitimate sister. "You poisonous woman, all of this is your crime." He dismissed most of the servants who were attending to his legitimate sister during her postpartum confinement, ordered the servants to lock her in her room, and forbade her from leaving until she had properly reflected on her sins. "Don't even think about going back to your family to complain. You gave birth to a freak because of your wrongdoing. Even the Shen family would be too ashamed to stand up for you." He then turned around and married a concubine, becoming as sweet as honey with her. His legitimate sister was locked in her room, forced to listen day after day as Qin Yi and the concubine flirted and teased each other in the courtyard. She had just given birth, was criticized and blamed again, and was confined here without even being able to properly rest during her postpartum period. On top of that, the physical toll from her previous 2 childbirths and 2 miscarriages had not yet been fully recovered. How could she possibly endure such humiliation? One late night, upon hearing the commotion from Qin Yi and his concubine in the next room, she fainted from sheer anger. Then she fell seriously ill. The Qin family, fearing that the Shen family would not let it go if something really happened, lifted her house arrest and hired a doctor from outside to help her recuperate. Only then did she manage to survive. Her stepmother and father had always favored their legitimate daughter and flew into a rage at Qin Yi. Her father pointed at Qin Yi's nose and scolded, "Don't think that just because you're in favor now, you can bully my daughter. Our Shen family has served as officials for generations. How many officials in the court have received favors from our Shen family? If we really tear up all pretenses, I'm afraid you'll have to shed a layer of skin too." Qin Yi repeatedly knelt and apologized, saying that the unusual appearance of this child had frightened him into behaving abnormally. Once the topic shifted to this child, father and the legal mother had nothing more to say and slightly cooled their anger. Qin Yi then regretfully promised to treat his legal sister well. And only then did father and the legal mother turn and leave in a huff. After that, Qin Yi distanced himself from the concubine and coaxed his legitimate wife with gentle words. Naturally, the legitimate wife became arrogant once again. She even boasted shamelessly, "As long as my father and mother are protecting me, Qin Yi can only grovel before me." She also bullied the out-of-favor concubine every day, saying, "She's just a concubine. If I'm in a good mood, I might give her some food. If I'm not, I'll beat her until she's crippled and sell her off. After all, my husband was only interested in her for a moment, a momentary whim." My elder sister smiled triumphantly, completely unaware of Qin Yi's sinister and hateful gaze as she bullied the concubine. Spring passed and autumn came, and in the blink of an eye, 5 years had gone by. During these 5 years, my medicine shop had opened its 6th branch in the capital. Since I couldn't foresee the future, I feared implicating the Marquis's estate and Lu Chengyuan, so I temporarily concealed my identity and hired someone else to manage all the affairs of the medicine shop on my behalf. I sought out renowned physicians from both inside and outside the capital, and even offered high rewards for effective contraceptive remedies from the common people. I brought them back to the medicine shop to test their efficacy and side effects one by one. In less than a year, I successfully developed a contraceptive formula that was not only effective but also caused minimal harm to women's bodies. So you see, there is a way. It's just that this world doesn't care about the suffering of women. When the prescription first hit the market, it faced a lot of ridicule and skepticism. There was even a drunk man who came to smash the shop sign, shouting that it was a wicked art that harmed the nation and its people, inciting women to be unfilial and disloyal. All of them were sent away by Lu Chengyuan's men. I paid no mind to any of this, focusing solely on developing more effective and harmless prescriptions, then expanding the shops beyond the capital. Over these 5 years, my elder sister, with great difficulty, gave premature birth to a daughter. Then, after a difficult labor, she gave birth to a pair of twin boys. During this period, she miscarried several times, nearly losing her life, but she didn't care, because she was only 1 boy away from achieving that ridiculous goal of 5 sons and 2 daughters. And as she gave birth to child after child, Qin Yi, just as she had hoped, was promoted to the rank of Grand General. She gloated triumphantly. Sister, my husband has now been promoted, and I will soon be honored with a noble title as well, and you? Running around all day without knowing what you're busy with, could it be that you regret it and are seeking medical help everywhere to have a child? Haha, when I receive the high honor of a noble title, you, and all the women in the capital, will have to bow your heads to me. It's useless for you to regret it, this good life is all mine. I looked at her sunken, dark eye sockets, her gradually thinning hairline, and her dry, sallow cheeks, all at just 25 years old. As well as fingers that occasionally stiffen and cannot bend, and a slightly limping leg when walking, nodding with a faint smile. On good days, I will send you off. She hasn't realized it yet. Qi is now a highly ranked general. The Shun family could no longer protect her. A few days later, I sat by the window on the second floor of the medicine shop. After reading for a while, I grew drowsy in the afternoon and practiced calligraphy by tracing a copybook in the distance. I spotted a figure wearing a thick hood, limping along. I recognized at a glance that it was my elder sister. She was lying on the soft couch used for consultations on the second floor of the pharmacy, separated from me by an embroidered screen. Doctor, I've heard that your clinic is the best at treating women's health issues. Please examine me. It's been over 2 years since my last childbirth, so why haven't I been able to conceive again? The female doctor carefully took her pulse and examined her body, then shook her head repeatedly. Madam, your body is too weak and deficient. It is not suitable for you to conceive again. It would be better to first take some contraceptive and nourishing herbs. Regulating your health is the top priority. But before she could finish speaking, her elder sister interrupted her. What do you know? Just this one child, and I'll have the auspicious combination of 5 sons and 2 daughters. Don't give me that nonsense. Just hurry up and prescribe me a fertility formula. The female doctor refused, knowing full well that this would harm the patient and go against her medical principles. My elder sister struggled for a long time before suddenly bursting into tears. You're all bullying me. My damned husband refuses to touch me. His heart only belongs to that concubine of his. He even despises me, saying I'm now ugly and old, and down there is all worn out, loose like a sack. Even my own children have been turned against me by my mother-in-law and that Yun Yang. Isn't your women's health clinic supposed to treat women's childbirth issues? Hurry up and prescribe me some medicine so I can conceive another child. I'm just 1 child away from having 5 sons and 2 daughters. Then I can surpass my half-sister and enjoy eternal happiness. Yun Yang was the favored concubine that Qi had taken in the past few years, out of consideration for the Shun family. Qi had publicly distanced himself from her for a while, watching helplessly as his legitimate wife tormented her day after day. Now that he holds immense power, what does the Shun family even matter? So he once again lavished his favor on her, even avenging her by frequently humiliating and tormenting the legitimate sister. Now, the entire general's manor follows the wind and sees Yun Yang as the true master. The legitimate sister's life is getting harder and harder. The reason for this is that Yun Yang is actually a distant niece of Lady Wang and grew up with Qi as childhood sweethearts, sharing mutual affection. It was only because of the Shun family that he had delayed marrying her and bringing her into the household. Back then, Qi slipped out of the city in the middle of the night and incidentally saved the drowning emperor. Did my elder sister never suspect what Qi was doing outside the city when he didn't return home at night? He was secretly meeting Yun Yang. Every time my legitimate elder sister was pregnant, he would use military affairs as an excuse and not return home for months. He was off fooling around at Yun Yang's place. It wasn't until the very end of my previous life that I found out about this. Back then, Qi held Yun Yang in his arms and mocked me, who was suffering from postpartum complications. It was only because of my secret rendezvous with Yun Yang that I saved the emperor's life and now enjoy such good days. Yun Yang is truly my lucky star. Shen Mingyu, you are now old, ugly, and foul-smelling, not even half as good as my Yun Yang. Thinking of this, I clenched the brush in my hand with hatred. The female physician ultimately did not prescribe any fertility-inducing remedies for the legitimate sister. The legitimate sister cursed for a while, then sat by herself for a bit. Before leaving with a vacant stare, before leaving, She glanced at me from behind the screen. "Who is over there?" The female doctor said. "She is the owner of our Huefu Hall." "What is she doing?" "Our owner is reading and writing." My elder sister stared blankly, her voice unusually desolate. "Before I was married, I also enjoyed sitting by the window like this to read." The female doctor comforted her. "You still can now." "Now." The elder sister lowered her gaze. "My eyesight is failing. My hands often cramp, my bones ache all day long, and I can no longer sit for long." The female doctor fell silent. My elder sister slowly and limping descended the stairs. I watched her alone, gradually limping away into the distance. It was as if I saw my past self, and a myriad of emotions surged in my heart. Calling the female doctor, "Aying, how is that patient's health?" "She is afflicted with numerous ailments. She suffers from chronic hair loss, abdominal stretch marks, stomach issues, hemorrhoids, mastitis, dizziness, and urinary incontinence. She had a difficult labor with her last child, and postpartum anxiety triggered a mild stroke. Now she is both qi and blood deficient, and has recently developed epilepsy and bone pain. The lower body is severely torn and cannot be recovered. Even the slightest movement will cause pain." Aang shook her head. "If you take good care of it, although it will be painful, you can still hold on for a few more years. But if you still hope to conceive and give birth again, I'm afraid you won't have many years left to live." I responded with a faint I continued to lower my head and practice calligraphy. "Go rest, Aang." Aang had just missed one more point. After all these years of pregnancy, fetal repositioning, prenatal education, childbirth, the trials from her mother-in-law, and the disdain and betrayal from her husband, as well as various physical changes and ailments, her mental state has also been affected. Looking at her just now, one moment angry, the next sorrowful, then dazed, I'm afraid she, like me in my previous life, has also developed depression. Depression, invisible and intangible, torments people the most painfully. The birthing formula that the Huefu Hall did not give to the legitimate sister, she obtained from elsewhere, along with some knockout drugs. Because Qinyi had long been unwilling to touch her, another 3 years passed, and the legitimate sister finally got her wish and conceived a male child. But this boy was even weaker than the twin boys from her previous pregnancy, and his cries were very faint when he was born. He was barely clinging to life, sustained only by medicinal brews. Nevertheless, the legitimate sister had finally achieved her goal of 5 sons and 2 daughters, 7 children in a row, just as in her previous life. The emperor learned of this news and praised Qinyi for his good fortune, bestowing upon him the imperial plaque, "May you have numerous descendants." He also praised his legitimate sister as a model for women across the land, granting her the title of second-rank lady, and called upon all women to learn from her. His legitimate sister received the imperial edict on her sickbed, too weak to rise and give thanks, yet her face was filled with a joyful smile, and on her withered, sallow cheeks trembled tears of triumphant happiness. This time, without her having to worry, Qinyi went all out to prepare the wedding banquet. The plaque inscribed with "May you have many descendants" was hung right in the center of the general's mansion gate. Flaunting to all visitors that it was personally written by His Majesty, the entire courtyard was filled with joy and flattery, all congratulating General Qin. My elder sister, heavily made up to conceal her withered appearance, forced herself to sit beside Qinyi. Qinyi was beaming with health and vigor. On his other side, the young and graceful Yunyang stood, while behind him, the lively and mischievous children played noisily. Only the legitimate eldest sister, like a made-up mummy dug out of an ancient grave, stood out discordantly amidst the surrounding jubilation. Her hair had fallen out, her teeth had fallen out, her entire face sagged downward, and her eyes were as dull as the color of earth. The entire courtyard was glorious and festive because of her, yet it seemed to have the least to do with her. I guessed that the legitimate eldest sister must have wanted to see me the most at that moment, so I took the initiative to walk over. When my elder sister saw me, her dull and lifeless eyes lit up, and she tried hard to straighten her back, but in the end, she couldn't manage it. "Sister, I am now a second-rank titled lady, my husband is a great general, and my children have all grown up and achieved great things. Everyone in the capital envies me. envies me. But you, in your whole life, you have no children, no descendants. Are you jealous of me?" She couldn't form complete sentences. After just a few words, she had to stop and gasp for breath several times. I just looked at her calmly, as if watching a dying insect. This is the ending I have long known. I hate how she bullied me in every way since we were young. I hate how in my previous life, she and my legal mother arranged for me to marry Qinyi. I hate how she poisoned me in the end, hastening my death. But when the great revenge was truly achieved, for some reason, besides the satisfaction, there was also a sense of desolation in my heart. She laughed, revealing her missing teeth. You can't speak, you're jealous of me." At that moment, her son and daughter came running over. They bypassed her and ran straight into my arms. The little girl looked up at me and asked, "You are Aunt Shen, aren't you? Auntie looks so young and beautiful, and you smell so nice too." The little girl wrinkled her nose and said, "Not like mother, who is ugly and old, and always smells like urine, like a beggar on the street. Anian, how could you say that about me? I am, your own mother." The eldest sister's hand trembled with emotion as she tried to reach for Anian, but she ultimately lacked the strength. The little boy pushed her hard. "Everything Anian said is true. Grandmother and Aunt Yun said the same. None of us like a mother like you," father said. "From now on, only treat Aunt Yun as mother." Then, pulling the little girl, he ran off laughing into the distance. My legitimate sister slumped weakly in the chair, her withered face blank and filled with resentment. I looked at her indifferently. "Eldest sister, my husband has been appointed as the Grand General, 5 sons and 2 daughters. The plaque and the imperial edict bestowed by His Majesty, the envy of the entire capital. Now you have it all. But, dear sister, would you like to lower your head and see what you have lost? And do these things you think you've gained truly belong to you? Have they truly brought you benefits? Can they even begin to compare to 1/10,000th of what you've sacrificed over the years?" The title and salary of the Grand General belong to Qin Yi. The imperial plaque inscribed with belongs to the Qin residents. 5 boys and 2 girls were all raised by Lady Wang and Yun Yang, and they deeply despised their legitimate elder sister. The second-rank honorary title was indeed conferred upon the legitimate elder sister herself, but the glory went to the Qin residents, and the protection benefited the children. It could not alleviate the suffering of the legitimate elder sister's illness, nor could it save her from her critical condition. However, it could provide her with a grand funeral. In this lifetime, my elder sister, she gave her wealth, her temperament, her efforts, and her health. She almost gave her entire life. In the end, she was blamed, despised, betrayed, her body weakened, her spirit broken. Left alone and broken like willow catkins in the wind, all for the benefit of others, the courtyard was festooned with lanterns and decorations, yet not a single red lantern was truly lit for my legitimate sister. Looking back from afar, my legitimate sister remained in the same reclined posture as before. She sat there dazedly, unmoving. My legitimate sister died on a spring day when flowers were in full bloom. That year, she had just turned 27. Before she died. She said she wanted to see me. I was helping out at the pharmacy, copying prescriptions, and calmly refused. I nodded. A malicious, resentful woman who hated me to the core. I knew exactly what she wanted most before she died. I am too happy with my life now to attend her banquet with hidden dangers. But I had the messenger take back a piece of paper for her. It was just an ordinary prescription, but she will understand when she sees it. The funeral of the legitimate eldest sister was held with great pomp and ceremony. Even for a second-rank titled lady, the ceremonial arrangements far exceeded her status. Qin Yi personally escorted her coffin, and the entire capital witnessed General Qin weeping uncontrollably for his beloved wife. Everyone praised General Qin for his deep affection and loyalty, and even the emperor issued a special decree of consolation and compensation. When a woman dies, she becomes a tool for their show. I watched coldly, feeling disgusted, and closed the window in revulsion. However, the day after my elder sister's funeral, I heard that Qin Yi, Lady Wang, and Yun Yang had all inexplicably fallen seriously ill. Within just a few days, their conditions worsened beyond cure, and they died one after another. Later, the weak boy that the legitimate eldest sister finally gave birth to also died young very quickly. The other children were all dispersed and raised by relatives of the Shun and Qin families. In just over a month, the plaque "May you have many descendants" still hung high, but the once glorious general's mansion had become an empty, eerie, and haunted house. There were many rumors in the capital. Some say General Qin had killed many people before, and those vengeful spirits came to claim his life. Others say General Qin was deeply devoted and loyal, unable to bear the thought of his wife following him in death. Only I know the real reason. That day, the prescription I gave to my elder sister was the one she had been taking daily ever since giving birth to her last child. It was Qin Yi himself who went to the Imperial Hospital to request it, and Lady Wang personally brewed it for her every day. Her elder sister thought that because she had been granted a noble title and had earned the imperial plaque for the Qin family, Qin Yi and Lady Wang had changed their minds, so she took it every day, never missing a single dose. But her health grew increasingly worse, because in that prescription, besides the excellent blood tonifying and qi-nourishing medicine prescribed by the imperial physician, Qin Yi had privately added a highly toxic ingredient, huolan. My elder sister took it 3 times a day, and in just over a month, her life was hanging by a thread. How do I know this? Because in my previous life, Qin Yi and Lady Wang did the same to me. My elder sister didn't know that long before she gave me that dose of red crown poison, my body was already filled with toxins, and I wouldn't have lasted more than a few days, because Qin Yi and Lady Wang were already eager to legitimize Yun Yang and have the children rightfully raised under her care. I stood up and left. Moreover, a wife like me, old, ugly, and reeking of foul odors, was truly an embarrassment to General Qin, so even though he knew I was already dying, he couldn't resist hastening my death with poison. I copied the prescription that the imperial physician had given to Qin Yi and added the words huolan at the end. My elder sister understood as soon as she saw it, so, with her last breath, she poisoned Qin Yi, his mother, and Yun Yang. My elder sister wanted all 3 of them to be buried with her. After my legitimate elder sister died, my father, who had always favored her, was impeached by censors, had his private assets seized, and was demoted several ranks, living in constant fear and anxiety. My stepmother, having lost her beloved daughter and faced with the family's misfortunes, has been bedridden for several days, with no cure in sight. I knew it was Lu Chengyuan helping me vent my anger. At this point, all my great grievances have been avenged. Spring is perfect for outings. In the years I've been in the capital, the Women's Welfare Clinic has long been running smoothly, diagnosing illnesses, providing treatments, developing new prescriptions, and regularly distributing contraceptive medications. The staff and doctors are well organized, so I, as the owner, no longer need to worry or exert effort. So I packed my bags again, ready to head south for a trip. Before leaving, I went to Sister Liu's grave and left some newly made contraceptives from the shop. If there is a next life, Sister Liu, please never take that deadly mercury again. It seems Sister Qingtang had just visited as well. With freshly placed pastries and a light green spring dress left here, every spring, Sister Liu would add a new water green dress to her wardrobe. After witnessing Sister Liu's death, Sister Qingtang refused to eat in protest against marriage. Fortunately, the Yang family had only one daughter, so Uncle Yang and his wife compromised, leaving the decision to her. As she grew a few years older, she met someone she liked. After developing the contraceptive prescription, Hui Fu Tang hesitated for a while. She discovered that the prescription was truly effective for women and gradually lessened her fear of marriage and childbirth. 2 years ago, she married the person she loved, and after giving birth to only one daughter, she and her husband agreed not to have any more children. Now, she runs a women's school herself, working as a female teacher who educates and nurtures others. I left Sister Liu's place and went straight to her school. In class, she taught the knowledge and principles that everyone talks about. She also spoke truths that no one else would dare to mention. She said that for women, marriage and childbirth are both high-stakes gambles. She also clearly explained the costs of pregnancy and childbirth to the girls one by one. Her private school was highly controversial. But girls came in an endless stream to audit the classes, filling the entire courtyard. I listened outside the courtyard for a long time. Reluctant to disturb her, I quietly left after setting down the hibiscus cakes I had brought for her. This time, I plan to travel south for a couple of years before returning, and along the way, I'll see if I can open a branch of the benevolent women's hall in the south, at the dock. Lu Chengyuan shamelessly insisted on following. I'm not going to be this insignificant official anymore. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He referred to the position of Prime Minister, which he had painstakingly earned by topping the imperial exams and working diligently with official documents. As an insignificant official, I laughed and said, "What about all your political duties? I remember you saying your ideal was to establish a moral foundation for the world, to secure a livelihood for the people, to carry on the lost teachings of past sages, and to bring peace and prosperity for all future generations." He muttered, "Actually, it's only a 2-month break. And I'll take the chance to see how the new policies are being implemented in the South. I can only accompany you for 2 months, but don't get so caught up in having fun that you forget there's a husband in the capital who thinks of you and longs for you every day." I smiled and stroked his face, saying, "My dear husband, just set your mind at ease. Though the Brocade City is full of pleasures, it's better to return home early." He reluctantly pulled me into his embrace. The spring waters surged as we sailed southward, with blooming flowers lining the banks. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. The wedding is approaching, and the young general I adore has returned. Looking at my elegant and refined top scholar cousin, I gritted my teeth and pleaded, "Cousin, let's call off the engagement tilde." My cousin was taken aback. "This?" I quickly added, "I'll give you my stepsister as compensation." My cousin thought it over carefully and nodded solemnly. "That works too." At the top scholars' banquet, I was holding my half-sister's hand as we walked past the small pond in the backyard. In the blink of an eye, with a loud splash, both my half-sister and I fell into the water. The summer heat was intense, and the pond water wasn't too cold. The pond was not deep, but the mud was too soft, and with one step, it would suck a person in, making it impossible to struggle free. I cried out in panic, "Help! Save me!" The maids accompanying me were terrified and hurried off to seek help. Before long, a young man in flowing white robes arrived gracefully, led by the maids. It was my cousin, Jiyu Jiang. He is also my fiancé. I was holding onto a withered tree root, about to call for help, when my half-sister beside me struggled first and shouted, tilde save me tilde save me tilde." And so, I watched as my fiancé, without hesitation, rushed toward my half-sister. As I was staring at them with my wide, watery eyes, a maid's exclamation came from the shore. I turned my head and saw a dark figure hurtling toward me. Splashes flew everywhere. My originally clean little face was instantly covered in mud spots, so dirty. "Yunfu tilde I'm coming tilde gurgle tilde I'll save tilde gurgle tilde." Good heavens, the famous young General Pei Yu actually couldn't swim. This was something I never expected, seeing Pei Yu about to sink. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly exerted force with my feet, shook off the annoying mud, and rushed toward Pei Yu, pulling him up in one swift motion. The pond isn't even that deep, so how could he? I didn't have time to think too much about it. That silly dear of a man, as soon as he held me, locked me in a chokehold. I struggled desperately, almost dying right there because of him. Fortunately, with great effort, I managed to pull him to the shore. Jiyu Jiang, who had just settled his half-sister, came over to lend a hand and pulled both Pei Yu and me ashore. By the time my parents and the other guests arrived at the scene, a bizarre sight unfolded on the shore. Pei Yu lay half-conscious with his head resting in my lap, while I, drenched and disheveled like a drowned ghost, gasped for breath. The other side wasn't much better either. My half-sister had just opened her almond-shaped eyes, pouted her small mouth, and was clinging to my fiancé Jiyu Jiang while sobbing. She cried loudly, "Cousin Jiang, thank goodness you're here, otherwise I would have been done for." Jiyu Jiang was a scholar, quite wooden and reserved, but he still understood the boundaries between men and women, and for a moment his expression became complicated. I squeezed out a few tears, weakly lifted my delicate, boneless jade-like arm, and pointed at him accusingly. Cousin Jiang, I am your fiancé. Why did you save Yunrong first instead of me? As I spoke, my voice choked with sobs, filled with grievance. Yunrong glanced at me timidly and held onto Jiyu Jiang's arm even tighter, covering my chest. I coughed twice, utterly heartbroken. Tell me, are you two having an affair behind my back? Jiyu Jiang frowned, looking down at Yunrong in his arms, then at me. Just as he was about to speak, Yunrong cut him off. She shook her head like a rattle drum. No, it's not like that. Listen to me. Please, although I have feelings for my cousin, but, at this point, she seemed to choke and started coughing incessantly, her little face scrunching up like a steamed bun. The row of onlookers gasped in unison, all turning their eyes to Jiyu Jiang, hoping he would provide a reasonable explanation. Peiyu, nestled in my arms, kept one eye on guard while the other continued to slumber. Jiyu Jiang's ears turned red as he whispered, my relationship with cousin Yunrong is completely innocent. I saved her first only because she was closer to the shore. Oh Tilda Dad couldn't help but exclaim. Mom shot him a sharp glare, and Dad guiltily lowered his head, though his curious eyes couldn't help but glance at Peiyu and me. Just happened to meet Peiyu's gaze. You little rascal. You're awake and still lying on my daughter. Father's beard seemed to fly up in anger. Peiyu was startled, and with a spin, flip, and jump, he dodged father's side kick. Impressive skills indeed. Worthy of the renowned General Pei. My mother helped me up, let out a long sigh, and declared firmly, this matter has turned into a complete mess today, let's see how we handle it. Peiyu suddenly dropped to one knee and said earnestly, Peiyu has taken advantage of Miss Yunfu and is willing to take responsibility. I will come to propose marriage on an auspicious day. I swallowed hard and glanced at Jiyu Jiang, who was still trapped in Yunrong's embrace, apart from his furrowed brow. He showed no other expression. Alas, truly, studying has made him foolish. What's the use of being the top scholar, still just a bookworm? His future bride is about to be taken away, yet he remains clueless, completely in the dark. Then, taking another look at Yunrong, she was smirking with a sly grin. The moment our eyes met, her smile instantly vanished, replaced by a pitiful, bitter expression. Oh, come on, who do you think you're fooling here? I rolled my eyes at the sun. I am Yun Fu. The legitimate eldest daughter of Minister of Revenue Yun Qian. Yunrong was born to my father's concubine, who had been with him even before my mother married into the Yun family. My mother, being magnanimous, never held it against her, when my mother was pregnant with me. The maid in the same room also quickly became pregnant and was elevated to the status of a concubine. However, the concubine was not blessed with good fortune. She died during childbirth while giving birth to Yunrong. My mother was a kind person. She treated Yunrong as her own. Over the years, my father never took any other women, so naturally, there were no scheming conflicts in the household. Yunrong and I have always gotten along well, but ever since I got engaged to Jiyu Jiang, things have been different. Yunrong started making things difficult for me everywhere. During breakfast, if I arrived just a little later than her, I wouldn't get enough to eat. While shopping, I spotted my favorite sugar figurine, and she insisted on biting it into pieces. At night, I was sleeping perfectly fine on my own, but she insisted on squeezing in to share the bed, just so she could steal the covers and leave me with a runny nose the next day. Also, she could laugh at me for being a snotty mess. I couldn't figure it out, so I snatched her beloved handkerchief, used it to wipe my nose, and asked, have you gone crazy lately? She stomped her feet and screamed, Yunfu, how dare you use the handkerchief mother gave me to wipe your nose? You're the one who's gone crazy. But after screaming, she wilted again and put on a sad face. After all, you are the ones who truly love each other as a family. I, a daughter born of a concubine. No matter how much I am doted on, I'm still an outsider. Hearing her so disheartened, my heart ached, and before I knew it, I fell for her sympathy ploy. So, when I tried to comfort her with good intentions, she pouted, her tears falling like pear blossoms. Yunfu, do you like cousin Jiang? Are you really going to marry him in the future? At that moment, I still hadn't caught on and replied with my head drooping, what if I don't like him? It's a marriage arranged by my parents, how could I dare to resist? Since ancient times, marriages have been arranged by parental orders and matchmakers' words. Yunrong's face lit up with joy, and she grabbed my hand excitedly, saying, I knew it, you like that young General Pei. I was taken aback for a moment, my cheeks flushing with warmth. Yes, I have someone I like, however, that person is our Yun family's sworn enemy. The general's residence is just on the next street. And Pei Yu and I have known each other since childhood. It wasn't that we actively got to know each other, rather, my father and old General Pei really loved to argue. My father is the Minister of Revenue, in charge of financial resources and transportation. General Pei had to go through my father's approval to distribute pay to the soldiers and apply for funds to purchase military provisions. The two of them would often argue fiercely over 10 or 8 taels of silver. My mother, accustomed to such scenes, would always take me and Yunrong by the hand, sit in the courtyard, and watch them quarrel while holding a handful of melon seeds. General Pei also loved to bring Pei Yu along to observe, claiming it was to learn in advance how to secure the benefits the soldiers deserved. I still remember when Pei Yu first came to the Yun family. I was only 5 years old, and he was just 8. I leaned against my mother's leg, watching intently as my father and General Pei argued. While Pei Yu stared at me with shining eyes, as the battle subsided, General Pei asked Pei Yu, what do you think, huh? Pei Yu's big eyes were filled with great confusion. Old General Pei's face turned red and his neck thickened. Did you see clearly? Pei Yu's eyes were filled with clear foolishness. I saw clearly. Their daughter is quite cute. Ahahaha. Father laughed heartily, looking up at the sky. Old General Pei's already dark face grew even darker. He put his hands on his hips and gave Pei Yu a kick in annoyance. I was just in a heated argument, and all you could do was stare at someone else's daughter. You useless fool. Pei Yu covered his butt, shouting Mom, dramatically as he ran out the door. According to my father, back then, old General Pei didn't even glance at him for half a month in the imperial court. Later, Pei Yu would often take advantage of the arguments between old General Pei and my father to bring me sugar figures. Osman thus cakes, little pinwheels. He gave too much. I can't remember clearly, but I remember, he didn't learn to argue with my father, but he did learn to talk back to General Pei. Every time he left the Yun family, he would mutter, you call that arguing? Arguing for just a few words and then leaving, that's not arguing, that's a complete defeat. General Pei, in a fit of anger, would always kick him in the butt. He would always shout and yell, Mom, come save me. The old man is hitting me again. Every time I looked forward to General Pei coming to argue with my dad, because then I could play with Pei Yu. But later, when I turned 13, my dad and Mom arranged a marriage for me and my cousin Jiyu Jiang, and Pei Yu never brought me anything again. After Pei Yu stopped bringing me things, Yunrong also started to turn against me, and I began to feel a bit panicked, until Yunrong said, Yunfu, I like cousin Jiang, what should I do? She is 3 months younger than me, but she never calls me sister, because she says I don't seem like an older sister. Older sisters take care of their younger sisters, but I often need her to take care of me. For example, I'm afraid of lightning, and whenever it thunders and rains, I have to force her to sleep in the same bed with me. For example, I get sick more easily than she does, and every time the seasons change, she has to remind me to wear more clothes. But this time, I wanted her to call me sister once, because I wanted to take care of her for once. She reluctantly called me sister, so, raising 3 fingers and patting my chest, I vowed, don't worry, I'll find a way to set you up with cousin Jiang. She poked her fingers and said with difficulty, but I don't want to be the lesser wife either. After making a constipated expression, she sighed and said, however, if the main wife is you, it's not so hard to accept. I believe the 3 of us could live very happily together. The corner of my mouth twitched, and I replied indifferently, thanks, but no thanks. My fiancé is Jiyu Jiang, but I don't like him. He is a man of great talent and gentle as jade, the dream lover in many people's eyes, for example, Yunrong. But in my eyes, he is dull and sluggish, a bookworm who only knows how to study. He is solely focused on passing the imperial exams to bring honor to his family. So, after I came of age, I didn't marry him right away, he said with a righteous air. a man should strive for self-improvement. Establishing a career before starting a family is the right path. He apologized to me, saying he felt sorry for making me wait for him all this time. On the surface, I tearfully expressed my understanding, but in my heart, I was overjoyed. I often drag Yunrong along to linger in front of him, creating opportunities for them to spend time together. However, Jiyu Jiang is such a bookworm, his eyes are only fixed on those few tattered books. He completely ignores the presence of Yunrong and me. To what extent is he obsessed? Who would have believed it? Once, I had Yunrong bring him tea to the study on my behalf. A few days later, he sent a folding fan to the Yun family, saying, "Thank you, cousin Yunfu, for the tea that day." I was dumbfounded and told him, "That was sent by Yunrong." He froze for a moment, then grinned sheepishly and said, "Then thank you, cousin Yunrong. I was so absorbed in my reading that I didn't notice. I'm really sorry." Yunrong unilaterally cut off contact with him for 3 days over this matter. Now, in the blink of an eye, 5 years have passed. Jiyu Jiang achieved the top score in the imperial examinations, earning a place on the gold list. I am already 18 years old. The eldest daughter remains unmarried, so Yunrong naturally cannot marry either. My parents feel guilty towards Yunrong because of this and have arranged several matchmaking meetings for her, saying that the marriage can be settled first and she can marry at the same time as me. Yunrong and I exchanged a glance, and a plan came to mind. I thought, if she goes to meet Peiyu, and later we end up with the wrong bride marrying the right groom, wouldn't that be perfect? But when father heard that Yunrong was fond of Peiyu, his beard bristled with anger, and he said with a dark expression, "No, absolutely not. Oh no, the Pei family and the Yun family are sworn enemies." I began to feel uneasy too, seeing father's reaction. Even if I break off the engagement with Jiyu Jiang, it will likely be very difficult for me to marry Peiyu. Speaking of Peiyu, after Jiyu Jiang and I got engaged, he was sent by General Pei to the northwest to guard the frontier. It was said to temper his willpower, so that he wouldn't lose his fighting spirit just because he was born in a time of peace. Over the years, I had no idea how he was doing or whether he had found someone he liked. Half a month before the top scholars' banquet was held, Peiyu returned. My heart swelled with emotion, and I pulled Yunrong along to the city gate to see him. He had grown from that little boy into a man, his skin much darker now, yet it couldn't hide his handsome, well-defined features. The armor looked heavy and cumbersome, but he wore it with an air of righteousness, making him look exceptionally dashing. Yunrong, holding my hand with one of hers and pointing at Peiyu with the other, was even more excited than I was. "Ulolo tilde is looking over here." I glanced at Peiyu from afar, my face blushing with shyness. "Yunrong, what's wrong?" "Me. It feels like a little deer is running wild in my chest." "Oh no, I've completely fallen in love." Yunrong, with tears in her eyes, held my hand excitedly and said, I understand tilde. We embraced each other warmly, knowing that finding a true confidant is rare. It felt as though we had met too late. Well, it wasn't exactly too late. We had grown up sharing the same tattered floral dress since childhood. Ever since I reunited with Peiyu at the city gate, I became even more determined to ruin the marriage arrangement with my cousin. My cousin has achieved the top score in the imperial examination and is about to host a grand celebration banquet. My half-sister and I shut ourselves in the room, whispering and discussing for a whole day and night, and finally came up with a plan. After the celebration banquet, the wedding date for me and Jiyu Jiang will be set. This operation must succeed. Failure is not an option. To ensure the success of our plan at the celebration banquet, I stayed up all night writing fervently, pouring out my heartfelt emotions onto a piece of rice paper as large as a steamed bun, roll it into a strip, stuff it into a bamboo tube, steal the little white pigeon my mother raised, sneak quietly to the outside of the Pei family's courtyard, take a deep breath, and toss the pigeon inside. Just then, I heard an ouch, and knew I had hit Peiyu on the head. What a coincidence. Right, immediately after, Peiyu climbed over the wall, leaped down, and cornered me in the alley. Still holding the little white dove, which was tied up like a zongza, the little white dove looked so wronged. Coo, tilde. I pouted. I was afraid it would run away, so I tied it up. If you ask what purpose it serves, then, it's purely for decorative purposes. Pei-yu narrowed his eyes, tore open the bamboo tube right in front of me, and read the words on the rice paper one by one. Green is the collar, endless is my longing, all for your sake, alone I am sighing, yes. I borrowed a few lines from the Book of Songs to express my admiration. It's nothing, really, my mind just couldn't come up with anything else, so I had to copy someone else's work. This was actually taught to me by Yunrong, she said. That's exactly how I did it. It's a pity that despite copying the Book of Songs for her cousin countless times, she still couldn't awaken even a single spark of understanding in that blockhead. Stop reciting already, I have some pride to maintain. At first, I didn't think much of it, but being face to face and hearing such cheesy lines made me cringe so hard I could dig a hole with my toes. It was just too embarrassing. These educated folks really know how to have fun. I could never do that. Pei-yu, however, remained completely serious. Miss Yunfu wrote me a love poem. How come I'm not the one feeling shy, but Miss Yunfu is blushing instead? I hemmed and hawed, and finally, throwing caution to the wind, I stiffened my neck and asked him, "Well, do you accept it or not?" A hint of discomfort flashed across his face. He propped one hand against the wall, placed the other on his hip, and looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. That sharp jawline, it makes me want to kill him. Just as I was about to erupt like a volcano, he looked at me with melancholy and said dejectedly, "But you are already engaged. What we are doing is immoral." I blinked and told him about the plan Yunrong and I had. He was so startled that he threw a combination of punches, let out a sharp ha, and exclaimed excitedly, "You all are simply audacious to the extreme." I thought he disagreed, and a faint sense of sadness was beginning to stir in my heart, when I saw his smile gradually turn twisted, and he said excitedly, Tilda, this is exactly what I wanted. We hit it off immediately, everything is ready. All we need is an east wind." At the top scholars' banquet, while everyone was enjoying themselves with wine and song, Yunrong and I quietly slipped away, stealthily taking 2 personal maids with us. We crept furtively to the edge of the small pond, glanced at the sun shining overhead, and wore expressions of grim determination. Yunrong patted my hand, ready to face death unflinchingly. "My dear sister, take care." I twitched the corner of my mouth. The pond water is at most shoulder deep. We whispered to each other for a while, and then, while the 2 maids were busy counting ants with their heads lowered, we held hands and jumped into the pond together. I had already discussed it with Pei-yu. He was observing from the shadows and would do everything he could to ensure Jiyu Jiang came to rescue me first, after which he would rush in to save me as well. Everything went according to plan. Apart from the surprising fact that Pei-yu couldn't swim, everything else went relatively smoothly. Of course, the Northwest is arid, and he's a landlubber, so it's understandable. How important is a woman's purity? Under the watchful eyes of everyone, I was holding Pei-yu, while Jiyu Jiang was holding Yunrong. Of course, it's impossible to explain clearly, so Yunrong and I both started crying, putting on a dramatic performance. Wiping away the tears that just wouldn't come, I simply covered my face and sobbed, "Whoa, Tilda, after something like this has happened, how can I have the face to keep living in this world?" Yunrong, with reddened eyes and a pout, said pitifully, "If sister won't live, then I don't want to live either, Tilda." The onlookers around us gasped in shock. Pei-yu was still pleading, "Lord Yun, please marry Miss Yunfu to me. I will treat her well." Father's face was ashen, and he remained silent. I pinched my thigh and cried even harder, this time tears actually falling. It hurt. Mother clicked her tongue several times and finally muttered a few words. What a sin. Then, after dismissing the onlookers, he took me and Yunrong to change into clean clothes. After freshening up, the group gathered in the main hall to discuss a solution. I sniffled, raised my hand, and spoke up. "I have a good idea." All eyes turned to me, and the pressure was palpable. I took a deep breath, bowed to Jiyu Jiang, and stammered, "Cousin, my innocence has been utterly ruined by Pei-yu. I can no longer marry you." "Pei-yu," I continued, "so, let's call off the engagement." This, Jiyu Jiang frowned, clearly taken aback. He glanced at Yunrong and said, "Actually, I don't really care about what outsiders think, but I feel sorry for my 2 cousins. Cousin Yun Fu has deep feelings for me, and breaking off the engagement truly hurt your heart. How about what? Could he really be thinking of having his cake and eating it too? Let him choke on it then. And besides, who is so deeply in love with him? Not only a bookworm but also a narcissist. Pei Yu was the first to shut him up. It's decided. I'll marry Yun Fu, and you'll marry Yun Rong. Everyone will be happy. Father immediately threw a teacup at him and cursed. Decided my foot. How is it decided? Mother remained expressionless and brushed it off casually. Calm down. Calm down. Everyone was at a standstill. I shot Yunrong a look. Why don't you say something? Yunrong then went limp and leaned toward Jiyu Jiang, but Jiyu Jiang instinctively dodged. Oh my god. Yunrong fell flat on her face. So pitiful. Yunrong was genuinely upset and started wailing. My life is so bitter. I lost my mother when I was young, and now I'm being scorned as an adult. I might as well end it all and follow my mother to the grave. Tilda. Her singing-like tone instantly drew everyone in the room into the scene. I could almost hear the mournful sound of the pipa echoing in my ears. Mother, with a soft heart, quickly helped her up and said with pity, "Don't cry, Ronga, mother will stand up for you." Then, she glared at father and declared, "It's decided. Fua will marry Pei Yu, and Ronga will marry Jiang. Father, well, that could work too." Such double standards, the same words spoken by different people lead to completely different treatment. I was speechless, choked with emotion. Jiyu Jiang was about to say something more, but I acted quickly, pinching the soft flesh on his waist and gritting my teeth. "Cousin, please don't say another word. I've already given you Yunrong as compensation. What more do you want?" He took a sharp breath and muttered softly, "Cousin Yunfu, a gentleman uses words, not fists. Let's be civilized." I narrowed my eyes. "I'm no gentleman." He was speechless for a moment before saying, "I just wanted to say that the 9th day of next month is an auspicious date, suitable for marriage." Oh, so I misunderstood him. I withdrew my hand resentfully, took a step or two, and guiltily hid behind Pei Yu. Jiyu Jiang looked at Pei Yu and me suspiciously and said slowly, "Cousin Yunfu doesn't seem the least bit aggrieved. Where is the appearance of being deeply in love with me?" The silence was deafening. The Pei family soon sent someone to propose marriage. Old General Pei was even happier than Pei Yu, speaking to my father calmly for the first time. However, he used the gentlest tone to say the most piercing words. "What's the matter? After all these years of rivalry, we've ended up as in-laws, haven't we? We're all one family now. How can I be as petty as you? In the future, our Pei family will treat Yun Fu well, so that she can give birth to several healthy sons for our Pei family." Father almost flipped the table on the spot, but fortunately, Mother held him back. "Calm down, you." Pei Yu and I stood aside, trembling with fear, worried that Father might get upset and call off the marriage. Fortunately, the wedding date was finally set. It is indeed the 9th day of next month. Yun Rong and I are getting married together. The days passed by in a flash, and in the blink of an eye, the wedding day arrived. The courtyard was adorned with red silk decorations, and the maids and servants were all beaming with joy. Yun Rong and I were getting ready in the same room, our faces flushed like peach blossoms. At 18, I, this old maiden, am finally getting married. The auspicious hour arrived, and both Yun Rong and I covered our heads with red veils, supported by our respective maids. We stepped out and entered the bridal sedan chairs. The top scholar and General Pei's son happened to marry on the same day, and both brides were daughters of the Yun family. Instantly, the tea houses and opera houses were buzzing with gossip. After the wedding, Pei Yu treated me very well. Within 2 months, I had noticeably gained some weight. When I returned to the Yun family for the Mid-Autumn Festival, my mother teased me, saying, "Your complexion is fair with a rosy glow, and your figure is full and shapely like a ripe peach. Life must be treating you well. You've truly understood the ways of the world." Just one sentence made me think of some indescribable scenes, leaving me too embarrassed to lift my head. My neck flushed crimson. Yun Rong has also returned, and she isn't the least bit shy. She even discusses intimate bedroom matters with Mother, asking for advice on how to better please her husband. Even Mother was blushed by her questions, stammering as she changed the subject. You've been married for a while now, it's about time to have a child. I bit my lip. Mother-in-law from the Pei family indeed has been urging us to have children, but Pei Yu always covers for us, saying, let it happen naturally. But I could sense that he actually really liked children. He was 22 years old, and those wealthy young men of his age already had children running around calling them daddy. How could he not be envious? Mother obtained a talisman for me and Yunrong, said to be for seeking a child. I placed it in my pouch, silently hoping in my heart that I would soon conceive a child. Yunrong looked rather troubled. Only after leaving mother's room did I dare ask her, what's wrong with you? Is cousin treating you poorly? Jiyu Jiang is just a bookworm who doesn't understand how to cherish a delicate woman. I've long seen through him. Sure enough, Yunrong seemed on the verge of tears and said with grievance, I originally thought that as an elegant gentleman full of learning, even if he was a bit dull, he would surely be someone who knew how to care for others. But that's not the case at all. Not only is he dull, but is also quite indifferent. Even when we share the same bed, he shows not the slightest bit of interest. I took the initiative, and he actually blamed me for disturbing his peace of mind, saying I must be a reincarnated fox spirit. How could he be like that? No way. I thought in surprise, feeling quite sympathetic towards Yunrong. Yunrong seemed to recall something and started venting again. Not only that, but he also has strange habits. Every night with a crack, the sound of a breaking branch came from somewhere. I turned my head to look and saw a cat meowing twice before darting off somewhere else. Yunrong cupped my face, urging me to focus and listen to what she had to say. I said, oh, go on. She took a deep breath and said with animated excitement, he has a strange habit every night. He likes to light a white candle and call out darling. I instinctively shivered, feeling a chill run down my spine. What kind of shady behavior is this? But upon second thought, something didn't seem right. Just as I was struggling to figure it out, Jiyu Jiang suddenly emerged from behind, pointing at Yunrong with a pained expression and saying, why do you think I acted that way? Don't you have any idea? A reversal. I was stunned for a moment, only to see 2 clear tears slowly fall from Yunrong's cheeks. Pouting, she said with grievance, what am I supposed to know? I only told you about that little matter. Isn't it just that I'm afraid of the dark and scared of thunder at night? That's right. In fact, the one afraid of thunder and lightning isn't me, it's Yunrong. Not only is she afraid of thunder and lightning, but she's also afraid of the dark, every night. She needs to keep an oil lamp lit to fall asleep. It's just that she's too proud to admit it, and every time she insists that I'm the one who's scared. But what exactly is this little thing she's talking about? Yunrong glanced at me, and seeing my confused expression and pouting lips, she kindly explained, I told him that we jumped into the pool on purpose. Then he just had to throw a tantrum with me, giving me the cold shoulder, ignoring me, and even when we slept in the same bed, he wouldn't let me touch him. The oil lamp at home ran out, and he still didn't go buy one, just lit a white candle directly. She kept on complaining incessantly, Jiyu Jiang's face growing darker and darker, and I was left more and more speechless. Truly her father's daughter, with a clever mouth that chattered on, leaving Jiyu Jiang with no chance to retort. Finally, only hearing Jiyu Jiang looking utterly defeated and asking with a tone of despair, then what do you want? Yunrong patted her chest, took several deep breaths, and slowly said, I don't want much, just let me hug you, and don't give me the cold shoulder, that would make me happy. Jiyu Jiang slumped his shoulders and nodded. All right. After that, the young couple left sweetly, leaving me standing there in a state of bewilderment. By the way, before Jiyu Jiang left, he gave me a cold glare and made a harsh remark. He looked down his nose at me and said, Cousin Yunfu, from now on, please stay away from my wife. She is pure-hearted, and I don't want you to lead her astray. Yunrong blinked her eyes and began to put on an exaggerated performance again. Husband, you've misunderstood. It's not sister's fault. I was willing to do as she asked. If I hadn't held back, I would have given each of them a good kick. I'm so angry. For the next 3 months, I refused all of Yunrong's visiting cards at my door, but even so, I couldn't stop her from using every trick in the book. Throwing pigeons tied up like Zongzi into the general's residence. Fine, I'll take a look at what message she has sent. As soon as the rice paper was unfolded, it was full of smugness. "Hey, my dear sister, I was diagnosed with a pregnancy pulse a couple of days ago. I specifically sent you this message to share the joy with you. What excellent tea." I immediately ordered someone to take the pigeon to the kitchen to make pigeon soup for dinner. At night, I clung tightly to Pei Yu, refusing to let go, and tearfully complained to him. "Tell me, are you just not capable?" Pei Yu turned over, his face full of defiance. "Fine, why wouldn't it be fine?" The next day, a room full of doctors lined up, taking turns to examine me. It was nothing serious, just that last night's commotion was too intense, and I couldn't handle it, passing out. Honestly, with all that fuss, I almost lost my life. However, this commotion truly cost a life. The doctor trembled as he knelt down, prostrating himself on the ground, and said in a shaky voice, reporting to the young general, "The young lady is in a weak condition and must not be reckless anymore. Otherwise what?" Pei Yu grew anxious. The doctor's hesitant speech was testing his patience, and his fiery temper was about to flare up. The doctor kowtowed again and said, "Otherwise, the fetus in her womb may not be safe." A collective gasp echoed around. I was already pregnant. Pei Yu was taken aback, unsure whether to be happy or not, and held my hand with lingering fear, saying remorsefully, "It's all my fault for making Fua suffer." I was pregnant and overjoyed, immediately writing a letter to show off to Yun Rong. Yun Rong, however, knew how to provoke even more. "Oh, I have two in my belly. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. I'll keep working hard." As luck would have it, Yun Rong and I gave birth on the very same day. That day, thunder roared and the storm raged. The midwife was bustling about, sweating cold sweat, and everyone in the household was in a state of panic and chaos. My body felt as if it had been split in two, the pain so intense I could barely breathe. When the baby's cry rang out, my concern wasn't for the child, but for Yunrong, who was far away at the Gu family. She was terrified of thunder, and now she was giving birth. I hoped nothing would go wrong. They say it was on a day like this that my aunt passed away. Yunrong must not follow in her aunt's footsteps. Pei Yu understood me and, holding my hand, brought me the news. "Don't worry. She is perfectly fine. She gave birth to a pair of twins, a boy and a girl, a quarter of an hour before you." "Oh, that's wonderful. Twins, a boy and a girl. I want that too. We should have twins in the future. What I have, Yunrong must have. What Yunrong has, I must have too." Pei Yu sighed helplessly, wiping away tears with a smile. You, why must you compete over everything? How can such things be obtained just because you want them?" "I think so too. Some things are simply meant to be." I settled down and fell into a deep sleep. In my dream, it was a warm spring day with blooming flowers. Under the peach blossom tree, Yunrong held a chubby baby in each hand. With Jiyu Jiang standing beside her, both wearing blissful smiles, she winked at me playfully and said in a teasing tone, "Sister, your baby has wet himself." I was taken aback and hurriedly handed the teary-eyed baby in my arms to Pei Yu. Looking at the handful of child's urine, I frowned deeply. This is truly a sweet burden. For the rest of our lives, we each have our own homes. I firmly believe that Yunrong will be very happy, and so will I, after hearing the two stories above. What are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.